Hey guys, my name is Jesse. Welcome to my channel where all I talk about is domain format. If you don't know what that is, I got a handy dandy little video up here you can watch to get caught up on what domain format is. And today I want to talk about a couple things that I think will be important for everybody to know about. And I also want to do a little speculating. I want to talk about the fact that I will be going to Indiana Nationals. 2, there's going to be a domain event at a separate Nationals coming up soon. And that got me thinking, what if Konami acknowledges domain? But first, if you want to support me, you can check me out on my Patreon. I've got exclusive benefits there, and I just put up a video today. I stream on YouTube and Twitch, so if you ever feel like hanging out, you should catch me on one of those sometime. But like always, the best way to support me is completely free. You can just like the video, share it with your friends. It's the only way that YouTube knows how to tell whether or not I should share my video with more people, and the more people who know about domain format, the better. All right, so let's get into it. I am going to be going to a NATS event. It's going to be July 11th through 13th. It's going to be at the Indiana Convention Center in Indianapolis. I have so many plans to do content there. You have no idea. I want to meet up with fans, play games, record some games. I would love to meet up with anybody who's a fan of me or a fan of domain format in general. I've gone to 2 YCSs so far, so I think I'm going to be really well prepared for this one. I've got over a month to prepare. I'm going to be bringing stuff like free swag to give out, stickers, possibly some mats. I'm going to be stuffing full a trade binder of just domain staples to either trade away or help people out with build their decks. I will hopefully be able to meet up with some people to collab. I won't name names just in case things don't work out. I've already got a couple on my mind so far. If you're watching this and you would like to collab with me, you can reach out to me on Discord or Twitter. My DMs are open. Feel free to message me there. And if we go over to the Discord, there is actually a place for the events that are scheduled. We've got, oh, that's a spoiler alert. The North America, this is the Indiana NAWCQ. I am interested, and this has the details here, yada yada, all that good stuff. So if you are going and you're in the Discord, it's a good place to talk about the event. And since you guys already saw the other thing I'm going to be talking about, let's check out the announcements over here. All right, so this is very long and I won't read it all, but this is about Ireland Nationals, which is coming up June 28th, very soon, about a month away. And you'll notice here the very important part is highlighted right here. There is a section talking about side events, and they've got some pretty interesting ones going on, like the typical, Go Edison. They have Cube going on, which that is crazy. 3v3, but the big one is domain format. I wish I could go to this so bad. I am so curious how they are going to run their events, because I'm gonna be honest, domain format is extremely fun casually, but I think it's kind of a nightmare competitively. I kind of feel like you would need to judge the entire length of the game. But that aside, if I got any Ireland fans or anybody going to the Ireland Nationals, there's going to be a domain format going on Sunday. So if you want to try and work with other people, you can go to the Discord. There's an event page for this. This is in the announcements. You can check it out. This is crazy. This is the first time at any major event that I think there's been domain format going on. And I also want to point out that I don't think it's Konami doing this. I think this is the venue doing this. There's going to be Konami official judges there. So are they going to be judging this domain format? How are they going to do that? Like I said, I am so curious to see how they do this. But this is huge. This is the first time a giant domain event's going to be going on. I'm so excited. I hope people take pictures or videos. I wish so bad that I could be there. If I had maybe known about this a month or 2 ahead of time, I could have probably planned it, maybe got some time off from work. I don't even have a passport. I'd have to get one of those, huh? But like I said, the fact that there's going to be judges there, and are they going to be judging the domain format game, kind of got me thinking, we've got to be on Konami's radar, right? So what would Konami look like acknowledging domain format or possibly supporting domain format? To me, this is a very interesting topic, but I want to be very careful when talking about it. So before I start, I am purely speculating. I have no behind the scenes info. While I make content for domain format, I'm not really a part of the domain format team. I don't make the rules. I don't determine if there's going to be any rule changes or bans or whatever. I have no control over that. Obviously, I think Michael would talk to me about it, but in the end, I would have no power in that regard. So I don't know of any domain format admins talking with Konami or vice versa. I literally am just guessing, but I do think it's fun to speculate. So I'm going to go ham. There are 3 major things that come up when Konami and domain format are discussed, talking about Konami acknowledging domain specifically. The first concern, the most common one in my experience, has been people wondering what would happen if Konami made pre-constructed decks for domain format, which then leads into speculating about what would happen if they made cards that could only be played in domain format. For instance, like making monsters that say this cannot start in your deck, it could only be your deck master, something like that. Obviously, if Konami did something like that, it would be monumental for the format. Now, in good ways or bad ways, that's that's arguable. If I were to give my opinion on how that type of scenario would play out, just the fact alone that Konami showed that there would be profitability to be had for making precons for domain format would show that they like fully believe domain format would be a good enough investment to do such with. And if Konami's mentioning domain format, that means all the Yugi tubers will be talking about it and the format would just explode farther than it already has. But personally, I wouldn't really want Konami to make domain specific cards because I won't derail too much, but I personally think when Wizards of the Coast started making commander-only product or commander-only card, that was kind of the start of the downhill of my enjoyment of the format, to be honest. But even in that scenario, that creating cards and pre-constructed decks for Commander just slingshot that format all the way straight to the top of most popular formats. I remember when they came out, it was huge. Like I said, in my experience, that over time made the format worse and worse. It made experiencing the format kind of head downwards and also made a lot more difficult to keep up with, especially when they started making precons for every single set that came out. Now, if Konami were to do something like pre-constructed decks for Domain, who's to say what would happen? Would they go down the same road? I doubt it. And I'm sure it'd be quite different. Konami likes to do things their own way, obviously. But if it were to happen, I would just be ecstatic. That would just mean that more people would learn about Domain, more people would be playing. Overall, good. Now, do I think it's likely? Not at all. I hate to say it, but like I said, we're just speculating. So another common subject that gets brought up is what if Konami takes their Deckmaster format and just adopts all the rules of Domain? Changes their rules, just one-to-one copy or whatever. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, the rules are, in my opinion, quite fleshed out. This is an interactable way to go through the rules, but the PDF, which can be accessed through the Domain Discord, is 18 pages long. That's pretty, it is quite thorough too, especially if you read through it. It sounds very professional. It doesn't sound half-assed. Everything that very frequently comes up is addressed. Over time, less and less things need to be addressed from my perspective. They just keep uncovering more things, more situations come up that need to be addressed, and it's just been refined over the last 4 years. And then also you can kind of go through the more easily digestible website, which has them all sectioned off in kind of subjects that makes it easier to find maybe specifically what you're looking for, all that good stuff. So what if Konami just one-to-one copied this for Deckmaster as like their 4-player variant or whatever? Maybe they'd call it Battle City Showdown, like in the final episode of Battle City where Yugi, Joey, Merrick, and Kaiba fought to see who was in, first through fourth, whatever. Now, despite the fact that I don't think they would, I'm going to speculate as if they did. Some very interesting things I think would come out of this. Again, Konami would talk about domain format in a way they wouldn't call it domain format, but they would just say they're updating their Deckmaster rules, which again, all of the Yugi tubers would talk about, and it would just propagate the format. So I think in that way, it would be good, it'd be nice. Another possibility of Konami acknowledging multiplayer formats would be that they would hopefully update a lot of text in regards to who it's targeting and who it's affecting. Maybe they would hopefully differentiate between your opponent as in a singular person and your opponents as in like each of your opponents. There would be a lot of cool things that could happen if they updated their text for multiplayer gameplay, I think. It would also open up room for card mechanics. They can make cards that say like each opponent or target opponent. It would, I think, overall open up some design space that they haven't explored previously. So I think some good things would come of that, but again, I don't think they would because Konami's a company, they would just do what they want anyway. They clearly already do. And then lastly, another big subject that comes up is like doing official sanctioned events at big things like YCSs or NAWCQs. Now again, I am speculating as if this is going to happen, like what would happen if it did happen, not whether or not I think it would happen. So if I'm speculating a hypothetical, some of the pros would be like, again, Konami mentioning domain format would be huge. YouTubers would mention it, more people would learn about it, more people would play our amazing format. Would there be any cons? So again, I hate to make so many comparisons to another format, but Commander is Magic the Gathering's Commander is incredibly fun. It's a 4-player multiplayer format. It is cringe in a competitive sense. I shouldn't say it's cringe. It is really rough to play competitively. I don't know if you're familiar, but there was like a document shown recently where a store listed out their end of turn procedures for a game of competitive EDH, and it was really funny for one. But two, quite arbitrary. It essentially boiled down to like arguing about who hypothetically would win. Likewise, I think it would be really hard to do an official sanctioned domain event. Not that people shouldn't try. If people want to try, I'm more than happy for other people to try and do that themselves. I just, personally, if I was going to join one, I would need a lot of rigorous boundaries. There needs to be a time limit. There needs to be a fair way to determine like who's using that time, like almost like a chess clock type of thing. There would have to be a judge at every table, at every game, really. At least I think. And not because I think that there would be, a ruling question every single second of the game, but just somebody who's a third party to kind of watch everybody. Because if I'm going to bring out my malicious part of myself, I kind of think it'd be really hard to catch 3 people trying to cheat one person. And what do I mean by that? I mean, like, when you, to bring up kind of a bad comparison, let's say you really like poker. And you go to a new town, you sit down at a poker table, there's 7 people there, you're the 8th. You think, oh, cool, bunch of fine people to play some poker with. You have no idea if all those people are just waiting for a new person to come in and gang up on. Like, you know what I'm saying? And that's technically not, I don't know how they police that type of stuff in a casino, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of weird things that could possibly happen where, like I said, I would need to know some things about the event before choosing to sign up for it, like completely randomizing all positions of every table, even in between tables, like not just putting the first 4 people who sign up at one table and then the next 4 people who sign up at another table, like get everybody who's entered and then completely randomize where they go and who they sit with. But if a large enough group of people were good enough, they could get down to the final table. And I don't know, man. It was just, I hate to be so like Debbie Downer about it, but I can't help but think about those things when it comes to like a sanctioned event type thing. And then also, again, how would the judges know how to judge things? Like, do you think a judge knows the difference between like how continuous effects are resolved that say your opponent versus an activated effect that says your opponent? You know what I'm saying? Like this. Now, funny that I mentioned judging a domain format game. There is actually a judge test for the domain server, and this test is very good. I've taken it, I passed it, and it's very good at bringing up certain situations that are important to know about for domain specifically. So if any of you guys are out there wanting to like really learn the very specific differences between advanced and domain, this is a great way to figure it out. He brings up excellent points, excellent questions that bring up the things that are different about domain. So check that out if you like. It's actually pretty fun. Now, I don't think that I have too many crazy ideas about, what would happen if Konami decided to acknowledge domain. I'm sure a lot of you guys have thought about it on your own time. I don't put too much stock into the idea though, because if I'm being honest, I don't need Konami to acknowledge domain format. Obviously, I would lose my mind if Konami reached out to me or the domain format team to either work together or do something. Who knows? I personally never want to burn that possible hypothetical bridge down. I know for a fact that the domain format themselves feel the same, but the way I see it and the way I've always seen it is we don't need Konami's permission to play how we like. To be honest, I've felt that way about pretty much every format for every card game that I've played. I like when stores, take things into their own hands and run something like a Heart of the Underdog event and get rid of the things that, that store specifically isn't happy about or whatever. That's amazing. I love that. Similarly, I feel like we as a group, the Discord, the domain format Discord, have kind of collectively decided like, hey, we would really like to play with this. Let's sit down and agree on a way to do this, and then let's play. Let's organize. Let's get more people to join. Let's tell people about it. It's been successful. The Discord has over 4,000 people and it's growing still. I say this all the time, but the Discord had 35 people when I joined. I don't think people realize how amazing it's been to see the Discord grow like this. I wasn't there from day one, but I was pretty darn early. Similarly, I think my channel has been a huge success, especially considering I've never done a YouTube channel before. Now we're having venues schedule their own domain events. That blows my mind. So that's pretty much my takeaway about all of that brainstorming and speculating. Obviously, it would shake the format if Konami recognized domain format specifically. I just don't think it's going to happen. If they do, they'll probably just like update their deckmaster rules to be similar to domain and say, look guys, we've given you a four player format, kind of like how they did with GOAT. They didn't really say they made GOAT, they just made Time Wizard, which allowed people to play GOAT. I feel like something like that would happen, which isn't a bad thing. Like if Konami never acknowledges us, I'm not affected. If Konami does do something where they say like, hey, now we have 4-player deckmaster rules, I'll be happy. But that's mainly my takeaway for the whole thing. You guys can let me know what you think would happen. Do you think Konami acknowledging us would be good? Do you think it'd be bad? Are you neutral on it? Let me know down below in the comments. I will try to respond to everybody I possibly can. And for everybody who made it through this far, thank you very much. I will see you guys in the next video.